All right. My name's Keith Mann. I'm the owner of Three Sons Ranch in Punta Gorda, about 18 miles yonder, towards State Route 31, north of Babcock. Kind of good lead-in with the invasive species. The primary focus of my talk today is going to be wild hogs. Anybody here have a wild hog problem on their conservation properties? Anybody? I thought so. I hope by the end of this, we can kind of get together and realize we don't really have a problem, we have an opportunity. So I'd like to work together with a lot of you folks and see what we can do to solve the problem and create the opportunity. Lemons into sausage. I don't know if that makes much sense to folks, but I love sausage. And so who are we? We're about 5,700 acres, roughly 9 square miles, right north of Babcock, State Route 31. Primarily, we're a bison ranch. So I think there's like 22 or 23. They're hard to count. Total head of bison right now on the property. We're holistically managed. It's an animal-centered approach. It's a grass-fed operation. We do a high-density rotational graze. We've seen a tremendous improvement in the property over the last 2 years. Very exciting. We just secured a 10,000-acre lease in Venice. We're going to replicate the same system using beef cow in Venice, and hopefully definitively prove that this is the best way to do things, but that's Keith's opinion. We also run the USDA-inspected mobile slaughter processing plant. We'll be building a fixed facility here in the future so that we can bring these animals to market. Locally raised, born on my ranch. I know their moms and their dads, everything that happens to them for their entire lives. I know everything they've eaten and they've not eaten everywhere they've been, and I run them through my plant and I sell them directly to consumers. So that was the vision. That's what I wanted to find. I couldn't find it, so we just built it. All right, there's some hogs right there. I see them every day. I love them. All different colors, shapes, and sizes. They're pretty neat animals. Quickly, you just kind of run through, what's going on, what happened, and where are we going from here, hopefully, with my help. So we have large and growing numbers of pigs. The estimates I've seen are over 1 million now. Every year it grows up regardless of how many are harvested. And it seems like even as we move into the center of the state, more and more pigs are showing up in populated areas, neighborhoods, developed areas. So it doesn't seem like there's an end point here. A lot of potential problems with the hogs. Crop damage, I think, is the biggest one now that people are starting to notice as we get more and more densely packed croplands and products all over the state. The hogs are finding out that that's a good place to eat. They eat the same things we do. They're omnivores. If we grow it, they'll eat it. In my situation, they uproot my grasses. They change the pH of my soil. They're disturbing those little micro ecosystems on the grass. All the bugs and all that cool stuff that I like is disappearing when these hogs come through, and then I get soda apples, and I get dog fennel. I got all these things I don't want after we spend a lot of time intensely managing the pasture to get those good nutritional grasses for the animals. Also breeding with domestic swine, and everybody knows that every wild hog herd, sounder, whatever you want to call it, carries either brucellosis or pseudorabies, and sometimes both. So there is a disease problem with the feral hogs. There's a certain amount of attrition due to disease, but it's not pervasive enough to prevent their multiplication. And of course, if there's a conservation land, that's where you're going to find the pigs. They like the same things people do, so they like that wild space. And what the heck happened? Well, there's more of us, and we're moving into their lands, and they're moving out into our lands, and we're crossing paths a lot more with these feral hogs. So I think it's become a lot more visible to people. More efficient farming, a lot more food in a smaller area. Pigs really enjoy that. All these tomatoes, potatoes, corn, citrus, all these things that you couldn't grow 25 years ago in Florida. Now you can grow them in places that you wouldn't have dreamed of. So all these pigs are coming out and finding all these great food sources and eating them up. A lot more conservation land and obviously a desire for more, I found out today. There's very little predation. All the big cats are gone or reduced in number to the point where they can't handle it. And all that shelter out there, all those saw palmettos, all those palm trees, all that wetland, great place to hide. And there's really, through industrial farming, antibiotics, and disease prevention, a lot of the diseases that used to kill these animals no longer kill them because they don't exist in any large number in the wild. And there's the truth, man. They're not going anywhere. They're not going. They'll be here after we're gone. They were here through the Ice Age. You know, they predated most of Floridians. I think 1539, DeSoto brought the first 3 from Cuba, and they've been going strong. This is hog control, you know, larger, more aggressive alligators. I don't think anybody wants that, but that's a technique. A couple potential solutions. We could let nature take its course. I don't think that's worked. Larger, more aggressive alligators, like I just said, you know, those might come about if we leave it alone. A lot of folks are shooting and leaving the animals where they lie. You know, that's easy, but it's not productive. The sport hunting industry, as we've seen in Texas, and we'll talk about a little bit later, that's a potential solution, but it just can't handle the volume. And there's certain animals that aren't desirable from a sport hunting perspective. Trap and remove. Where do you put them? Once you trap them and you remove them. You just dump them on somebody else's lawn. That's not very helpful either. And as you'll see here, I want to trap them and harvest them for meat. I think that's the solution. I think that's where we need to go with this. Texas is a little bit farther along in this than we are. They kind of came to terms with the hog problem about 5 to 10 years ago. They have 2.6 million. Now they got 260,000 square miles, and they got 2.6 million pigs. So per square mile, we have a denser population, but they do have a much larger number. There is a coordinated effort, municipally, statewide, and they even have some federal funds available to try to corral, harvest, and remove some of these pigs. And I have a slide next to it. You'll see that that's not been successful. But you can hunt them all year round. There's a helicopter hunting. You ever see guys hanging out in helicopters shooting pigs in Texas? That's big business, millions of dollars. But they've really had zero success in controlling their pig population. And that's with a lot of effort and a lot of money. This is a quote from a gentleman who works for Texas, and you can see how the numbers look like. I want my portfolio to look like the Texas pig population. It doubles every 4 years. They're eliminating a third of the animals annually, and it's still growing by 21% year over year, compounding annually. So they're in big trouble. So in 4 years, they're going to have 5 million pigs. I don't know how that's going to work for them. But there's no data available on Florida hogs as far as growth at this point in time that I'm aware of. Perhaps some of you guys know where there's some data, but I've not seen any. And as a matter of fact, Texas has very, very little data on harvested hogs, numbers of hogs. It's really just a wild guess. No pun intended, I suppose. Well, here's Keith's solution right here. That's a beautiful Boston butt, nice fat cover, and that is great fresh wild hog sausage that we made in our plant. It is awesome. And we're starting to move it out, and people dig it, man. I certainly do. The answer is it's a consumer-driven meat market. I don't require any help. From I don't need a grant. I don't need to fill out any paperwork. It's there. It's sitting. It's waiting for us. I just need a little help from the decision makers. But consumers, certainly my business is grass-fed, natural, no hormone, no antibiotic, and all that stuff. Consumers are looking for that, and they're finding me, and I can't keep anything in stock. So we're doing quite well with the domesticated animals, as much as you can domesticate a bison, the beef, the bison, this kind of thing. But the hogs are really taking it to another level. They've never seen a cage. They don't like people. They're eating whatever the heck they can get their hands on. It's true pasture-raised meat. And it's a different eating experience. It has a different mouthfeel, a different nutritional profile. But it's certainly a great product, and people love it, believe me. A lot of them don't know it yet, but they do. We have the cowboys. I'm not a cowboy. Sometimes I pretend I am. But we have the cowboys been eating this stuff their whole lives. Their grandparents ate it their whole lives, and they are blown away that people will pay big money to eat these pigs, but they certainly do. And that market is being developed, but there's also an existing market that's just massive. Texas can't touch it, and we need to help them out. Oh yeah, very sexy. Wild boar. You change the name from wild pig to wild boar, you'll sell 25% more. Europe, Asia, South America, the U.S., this industrialized food machine that we got going on, I'm really not a big fan of. It's kind of, we've all become used to this kind of white, fatty, tasteless pork. And in other countries where you don't have that subsidized industry, they don't have the experience that we do with that kind of meat. And so this product, a wild boar, an export boar from here to there, is going to go over much, much more easily. So that's a huge market. We're talking billions of folks making a ton of money in China. 300 or 400 million people out of poverty over the last couple decades. I mean, that's a huge market looking for proteins, and hopefully we can at least begin to fill it a little bit with this. So this would be, in my perfect world, totally privately funded by this guy here. It's easy for me to write these checks. Totally privately funded hog harvest statewide at all levels of government, privately owned lands, everybody coming together, working together towards the same goal. Now that's a big project, granted, no question about it. But we're just getting started, so I don't have a problem shooting for the moon. We're going to get there eventually. There are an enormous amount of job creation opportunities. We need trappers. We need highly skilled work sets or skill sets that don't exist here. Meat cutting, butchering, packaging, all these kinds of things that used to be in Florida and have been pushed out west to the big meat packing houses, North Carolina, all the way out to Iowa, Des Moines, all those places, these massive packing houses. Well, those skill sets have left the state. To me, that's sad, and especially as an owner of a meat plant, it's very hard for me to find a reliable individual who's legally in the country, number one, who can do that kind of work. So I'm excited about developing that skill set again in Florida. And for you folks who run these managed properties, these conservation properties, I think they're awesome. And I know these hogs are a pain in the butt. And there's a ton of advantages from our standpoint for property managers especially, and I think everybody up here has had an issue with funding. Well, this would be an easy way to acquire more funds with very little paperwork and very little effort on your part. So the private consumer-driven meat market will pay to have the hogs removed. It's not a question of effort on your part. I just need a little bit of help. I need to get on there and get all that. Every organization has a little bit of a different paperwork trail that needs to be written down, needs to be delivered in order to get access to the property, to get access to the pigs, and that's fine, and we can negotiate that as we go. But there's a ton of money and opportunity, and I know that a lot of time is also spent harvesting these animals, shooting them, managing the damage and all this stuff, and those are operating costs that can be reduced, so the bottom line is also improved in that manner. From our standpoint, there are a lot of different levels of management, and we are not familiar with who has control over any particular piece of property at any given time. And it seems to change, and I know there's some overlap in some, and then there's some private management firms that are running particular properties. And for us, that's the biggest challenge as we start to throw these feelers out and try to figure out where the opportunities are and who the decision makers are. It's a big challenge to figure out who the one person is that we need to speak to get permission to acquire these animals. So I don't know if you could put a database or however you would approach that, but that is a big challenge. And reliable trappers. Most people like to hunt with dogs or they like to shoot and leave them lie. I think that's probably more sporting and more fun, perhaps. Trapping, you just check them once a day and you load them in a truck. But a lot of the trappers, it's one of those kinds of businesses where you have to trust an individual to come onto your property unaccompanied and unmonitored to do the right thing. And me as a private landowner, that's a challenge. I can imagine for you folks out there have a lot of liability and all these things and your jobs are on the line. So that is a big challenge. And the markets, the regulatory stuff, man, I'll tell you what, you try to ship a container to Europe these days, you better have 4 lawyers. It is, it's a big challenge, but we're working on it. And then reintroducing the American consumer to traditional meats, wild-caught meats, game meats, that kind of stuff. That's going to be a tough one. Americans are stubborn folk. So this is just a quick review about what we talked about briefly here. Man, did I blow through that? But, I'm looking at this hog thing. It's not going anywhere. It's getting worse. And I think I have a pretty good solution here where everybody can win. And now I'm not the only person who's going to do this. It's a good opportunity. There's multiple companies in Texas doing this. But as a first mover and as an innovator, we think that we're uniquely positioned to help all levels of conservation folks clear these hogs out and move them out in a productive way to generate tax revenue, job growth. I'd love to have a branded Florida wild hog, wild boar meat that people recognize as coming from Florida. It's kind of neat, you know. It's something right now that's a hassle, but in the future it'd be something that's really uniquely identified with the state, and people look on it in a good light because they enjoy it. So there's a ton of opportunity out there with the feral hogs. Again, there we go. Here's what we can do. You know, let us know what we need to do. Let's execute it, no pun intended, and then just eat the heck out of those hogs, man. Eat the heck out of the hogs. I think that's the most important one, because that stuff's good. And that's all I got prepared. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Okay, my quick question is, you know, pigs were not allowed in the Jewish because they was contaminated with parasites. You don't find any parasites on these wild dogs?
We do. We find parasites in the pigs, absolutely.
So you've been processing?
Sure, but now this is it's a USDA inspected plant. This is the revelation over the last 8 to 10 months, is that the USDA has changed the rules. So we're now allowed to process feral pigs. To be honest with you, you don't have to differentiate feral from domesticated pigs on a label anymore. Your hot dog could have feral pig in it, you wouldn't know it. The meat goes through the same process. It's checked by the same inspectors. It falls under the same protective categories as far as a consumed product in the United States. But there are parasites in every single animal, but generally and I don't know how deep into the weeds we want to get, but they're generally confined to the organs, and that's not a consumed product, so the muscle meat is not an issue.
Okay, my second question is with the coyotes. Are coyotes controlling the hogs? Or
Coyotes do eat the hogs, but there's not enough coyotes to eat the hogs. So
not yet.
Coyotes like calves. Coyotes like a lot of different things besides hogs. So maybe larger, more aggressive coyotes is also something we should talk about. I don't know.
Yeah, I had the same question about coyotes, but we're concerned, having spoken with the state veterinarian, about the workers, because there are 3 diseases that can produce an autoimmune situation.
Sure.
And people who go out by themselves and capture these without the gloves and protection, just a cut, and they can get these diseases. Do you have that concern when you encourage people to go after these?
Well, absolutely. I would encourage everybody to take every precaution they see necessary. In my plant, we require it because even the blood can carry disease. So everybody's gloved up and masked up, and whenever we handle the animals, absolutely, that's a primary concern: the safety of the workers. But the trappers, you can try to tell them how to do their job, but I've tried and it doesn't really work. So these guys are pretty good. They're pretty safe, and I think that they're doing a good job. Now, if we need more of them, they may have to learn. I don't know, but. I would trust them to make a decision on their safety more than me telling them what to do.
Yes, thank you.
We have a guy that's coming out and trapping hogs on our conservation land right now. He's so far only netted 1, but we are expecting more results. And I'm not sure he knows about you and what your market is. I think he may be selling to big game ranches and places like that. I don't know. I never actually asked him where they go. He just said there's a market for it and he can sell all he can get. So I'm curious, is it a floating rate that you charge on pound per hog, or how does it work? I'm just kind of curious, the economic side of it.
We have a low end. I can't take generally anything under 60 pounds. It's just not worth the time and effort.
Right.
But we do right now pay a flat rate, but I imagine as the market shifts, that rate will change, and we have a lot of efficiencies that we can work on as well. But a lot of people do trap a lot of hogs, take the trophy hogs with the teeth, and then they dump the other ones in somebody else's property. We see a lot of that going on. But there is an underground market for these animals. They're going parts unknown. They're going to sausage makers in their garage, this kind of thing, and that's been going on for hundreds of years.
I want to talk to you after your presentation. Okay,
sure.
Thank you.
So I take it y'all subcontract your trappers out?
We do. I work with a bunch of trappers, so we're always looking for trappers. I don't know how we go. We're always looking for trappers, so it's a challenge. But again, the hardest part, and certainly no judgment, but the hardest part for us is find somebody who we know is working when they're telling us they're working. it's easy to have a bad day trapping after 8 hours to getting paid.
Hi. We have a ranch in Collier County where we have a hog problem, and we initially went through a year-long process to get a contract with USDA Wildlife Services to come in and help us manage the hogs. And then the hunters in our community got word of it, went to our commissioners, and so they canceled the contract that took so long to put in place, and we developed a hunt program on our ranch. And really, the hunt program is doing nothing. They're hardly getting any hogs off the property. So one, how would you, how do you determine what the population is on your ranch? It's very hard to do, I understand that.
Yeah, I don't know. They're always coming and going.
Another one of the outcries that we received are that, USDA Wildlife Services, they weren't harvesting the meat. There really isn't a place in Collier County to bring the meat to, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, as far as my knowledge goes. Are there a lot of other areas in the state or other businesses in the state that can take the hogs that you know of?
I'm aware of one gentleman south of Okeechobee in Moorhaven who was buying the animals, but there's just not a lot of infrastructure. It's going to take some time. Now, we just built a large set of pens on the ranch to handle several hundred at a time, but even that's a drop in the bucket when you're talking about 1 million animals. So we're going to need some time, but that's coming, and it's really going to be determined by the development of the market. I don't know if that answers anything you just asked or not.
I guess how you determine the extent of damage on your,
On my ranch, we just driving around watching animals, stepping in holes and breaking legs, and watching my soda apples come back and all these things we got rid of. But I don't know how to determine a population per square mile. I don't know how they do that. I think it's a wild guess, in my opinion, having talked to a lot of the folks. So.
Okay. Thank you.
That's all I got. Thank you.